This is Dr. Sue Spencer. I want to welcome you to Module 1 of EDCO 350, Models of Positive Classroom Management. Learning objectives for this module. What is positive classroom management? Why use positive classroom management as opposed to the traditional punishment model of managing student behavior? What is positive behavior and intervention support model, known as PBIS? What is the response to intervention module of positive classroom management, commonly referred to as RTI? What is positive classroom management? Positive classroom management is very different from the traditional punishment model of managing a classroom. In positive classroom management, we're aiming to prevent inappropriate behaviors by teaching students how to make appropriate choices, how to respond in a way that is something that you as a classroom teacher approve of. One of the ways we do this, the most common way, is we teach students what we want them to do rather than telling them what not to do. In the next slide, we're going to be discussing the two most common models of classroom management. Both of these models are based on problem solving. Both of the models use a three-tiered approach to classroom management, and their aim is to prevent inappropriate behaviors through teaching social skills and reinforcing students' appropriate behavior. Both models offer a range of interventions that are systematically applied and based on the student's level of need. And both models address the role of the environment on student behavior. The first model, if you'll click on Positive Behavior and Intervention Supports up at the top of the page, you'll see the pbis.org website. And you'll notice that PBIS is a school-wide model. The school itself, the teachers train and adopt these procedures, and they're to be applied across all classrooms in the school. They can be used for bullying prevention as well as in-class behavior control and modification. Positive Behavior Supports is a behaviorally based system, and it's used to enhance the capacity of schools, families, and communities to design effective environments that improve the link between research-validated practices and the environment where teaching and learning occurs. There are three levels to this model. If you'll look over to the left-hand side of the page, under School, you'll see Primary Level. If you'll click on that. At the primary intervention level, the teacher and the school look to teach all students appropriate behavior. And these are commonly held behaviors across the school. What we typically do here is you're teaching your rules, routines, and procedures to students from day one. The model looks to intervene early by teaching best practices from day one before inappropriate behavior occurs. You're using a multi-level system to deliver these services, using research-based interventions. You're monitoring student progress to help you to choose the interventions that are most appropriate for the student, and using that data, as I said, to help you make decisions. So at the first level, you're making sure you're teaching your behavioral expectations to the students and how you want them to respond. For example, listening. If we're teaching students how to respond appropriately, we have to tell them what we mean by listening. And it's going to be different for everyone. For me personally, listening would be tracking the teacher with your eyes, taking notes, asking questions, those types of things. So if you want a student to listen, you're going to be teaching them what you mean by listening, as opposed to punishing them when they don't demonstrate those behaviors. Now click on the second level. At the secondary level, you have students occasionally who, despite your teaching them what you want them to do, still have difficulty responding appropriately. For that student, you may have to do individualized instruction and go back and maybe include another way of listening. In that example I gave you earlier, something else might need to be added. Or you may have to do direct instruction and actually show the student how to take notes, which questions to ask, that kind of thing. This could also be small group instruction. So moving up the levels, this is more support. Now click on the tertiary level, the third level. At the third level, the student is going to need even more individualized support. At that level, this may be where the student is referred to the RTI team, the response to intervention team, because at this point you've got a student whose problem behavior is reoccurring over time and not responding to your best efforts. The response to intervention model is very similar to the PBIS model. It too is a multi-tiered approach to the early identification and support of students with learning and behavior needs. The RTI process begins with high-quality instruction and universal screening of all students in the general ed classroom. Struggling learners who've reached Tier 3 of the PBIS model are now going to be provided with interventions at increasing levels of intensity to accelerate their rate of learning and ability to behave appropriately in the classroom. These services may be provided by a variety of personnel, including general education teachers, special educators, and other specialists. One of the keys at this level is close progress monitoring to assess both the learning rate and the level of performance of individual students. Educational decisions about the intensity and duration of interventions are based on the individual student's response to intervention. RTI is designed for use when making decisions in both general and special ed. The RTI model is oftentimes used as a method of determining if a student has a need for special ed services or has a learning disability. Once again, this is high quality instruction that's delivered for students on an individual basis. The length of time a student is in RTI can vary, but generally it doesn't exceed about 8 weeks. During this time, once again, a student is very closely monitored and screened using curriculum-based measurement. At the end of the period, the RTI period, students showing significant progress are generally returned to the general ed classroom. Students not showing adequate progress are moved to Tier 2. In Tier 2, the student will be provided with more targeted interventions. Group size can be varied, the frequency and duration of the intervention can be varied, or other professionals might be called in to provide outside support, like a speech interventionist or a social worker, anyone that can provide assistance, or a reading specialist. At Tier 3, students at this level may receive a functional behavior analysis. This assessment is used to determine if a child, in fact, has a disability of some type that is interfering with the student's ability to learn and to function in the social setting as required.